to talk in to look at that one. Okay. He's going to point at you. And what you're going to say is, I'm Gregory Sutton, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
I'm Gregory Sutton, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Yes, Gregory Sutton is a singer-songwriter and a friend of a friend, and we're happy to make your acquaintance. Thanks again to Wes Mabey for putting us together, but we've been enjoying your music. His latest release is available on all the streaming stuff.
Most of it.
Most of it?
Most of it, yeah. There's one song on Spotify now. I haven't released the album fully on Spotify, but on Bandcamp it is there right now, along with my previous work from a couple of years ago.
Oh, terrific. I found you on Amazon Music.
Yep, yeah, that would be there too.
Yeah, and we were listening to the single Last Man Standing on the way over here, actually. So, but let's rewind. Before we get too far into it, I want to know where your music background came from and where you grew up and all that stuff.
Wow.
How it all started.
Well, being an Army brat, I was all over the country. From Key West, Florida to Anchorage, Alaska, and West Texas, where we spent a lot of time when I was young. The first live bands I ever heard was out in the desert. Was out in a little roadhouse where we used to go out horseback riding and hiking around. And I heard Charlie Pride singing one night. I heard a band. I heard the steel guitars out in the back door, and we used to kind of sneak up to the back door and listen to their sound checks because we knew when they were going to be on. And that kind of hooked me into it. And then there were a lot of great musical TV shows back in the late '60s, or the late '60s and the mid '60s. Glenn Campbell and those kind of people had shows, and they were just great and had just a plethora of different kind of talent, all kind of music on it. It was all appreciated. And it was all good. Later on, we transferred up to Alaska. We were in Anchorage, and the first rock and roll stuff I heard was kind of a remote place to be in the late '60s when everything was going on in California and New York City and all these kind of places where music was happening. But we were kind of isolated there, so everything was, I had to think of things being 5 years behind.
Oh, wow.
But there was one station that was done by, I believe it was somebody on the Air Force Services on Elmendorf Airport Base, and they started playing Cream and Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin and all these things, and folk music, Richie Havens, all these kind of music after 10 o'clock at night, and it just put the hook in me. Having seen the Beatles before in '64 on TV, like most people had, the first real rock that I ever saw was actually in El Paso, Texas, and it was the Bobby Fuller Four. Oh, they were playing when Lyndon Johnson came to town in 1964, and the band was set up, and I was just like, I get it, I get it, and I just kind of put it into me for a while. I didn't get to write for a long time, and really didn't get a decent guitar until I got my own job and went to work and paid for myself. That's nothing. Go back to Johnny Cash. And it's like, I love Johnny Cash. Come on. I mean, all that music is great. So, and over the years, I ended up working in publishing, and then I went to work for music magazines.
Slow down. So, still, as the music's kind of seeping into you, you had all these great influences, starting with Charlie Pride and getting to know what live music sounded like. And then the TV shows, because it's a whole different thing. Because now you can analyze based on the TV show kind of input musically is a little different because you can be a little more analytical about it. You kind of watching it with a little more technical. It's a little less visceral. Stop me if I'm...
No, that's absolutely right.
You know, so you could kind of pick things apart, especially a guy like Glenn Campbell. Because you go from seeing Charlie Pride playing live and feeling live music, and then you kind of dig into Glenn Campbell because he was such a technical player. And then you can sort of understand what that is. And then when you went to Anchorage, you had to dig into records and you had to dig into, music on the radio that you heard. So that was... It seems like you were getting these different experiences with music that were hitting you from different angles.
Yeah, I just happened to be in the right place at the right time a lot of times to hear something that would just come out, or radio is everything. It's different these days on how people break and how people get
get heard out there. It's an entirely different story. But back then, you had curators who kind of made those what was going to be on the radio, what was not, before it got too influenced by some other unfortunate things like payola and those kind of things. But there were people who were drivers. We were just talking about this the other day with some friends about some of these most influential DJs who really were spinning records out of what they had heard and they had received and really liked. You had Jim Ladd and B. Mitchell Reed and who came after the Alan Freeds and those kind of people who were spinning. So yeah, it was really kind of just a huge banquet of music out there, and all the best of it was getting heard no matter what.
That's funny that you're the curating influenced you so much, but it's true because we did have kind of a common language from place to place, from who we listened to, and those guys who curated that music for us had a lot to do with what felt good to us. It's what we were exposed to.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was really a soundtrack that you went through the day with.
But you had the national guys. I mean, maybe I'm fast forwarding a little bit. But back then, Wolfman Jack, but forward to Casey Kasem and Rick Dees and those guys. But locally, though, you also had the guys who had their finger on the local pulse. And so, did you do a lot of movement from, as you started playing? Where did you go?
I started playing, found a few people in high school. By that time, we had gone to, we were at NSA. My dad was stationed at the NSA for a while. And I finished high school there and got with some people who equally as bad as I was on guitar and singing at the time. So you find that niche, that it's kind of like, musicians are like water. You're going to find your level if you just keep flowing. You'll get there, you'll get here. Someday hopefully you get up a little higher.
Yeah. So, are you in touch with any of those guys?
No, I wouldn't even know how to find them. I mean, the thing about growing up in a military family, you move around so much, and people come and go. It's the way it is.
Yeah.
You're expected just to live with it, and that's fine. I mean,
it's how it is.
Yeah. So yeah, most of the people I am familiar with now and hang out with and play with and everything are mostly in the Bay Area. And the mountains a little bit too. We have a place up there.
And the mountains. So a lot of your songwriting now you do in the mountains.
Yeah, well, bringing to this new record, it was really done out of necessity that way, because all of a sudden, all of us have gigs, we have schedules, places, and all of a sudden it just shut down, as you remember.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing was, where are we going to weather this out? So my partner Sarah and I, we headed to our other place up in the mountains, and that's where I had a small studio set up. And it just made sense the longer things went on. It's like, well, I've got to keep working. I'm not going to be playing out. I'm not going to be doing this. I've got my other work and all, but music-wise, just start laying it down. Just start writing the ideas down and putting them together. And you know how it is in the recording process. Is just can be gut-wrenching and it can be very easy sometimes. It goes from one thing to the other. You have an idea, it rolls out, it comes in. Last Man Standing, which is one of the songs that you and I were talking about before the show went live, it just kind of came really quick. I had all those riffs. I had that idea. I had the idea of there's a lot of people sitting around at their kitchen tables and they're not going to work and they're not going anywhere and they're saying, what the heck do we do?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to write something that said, it's going to be all right. You just have to, everybody's in the situation. Just hang in there and we'll get there.
Hang in there and we'll get there.
And it's kind of a positive, upbeat song. Yeah. And then you write more, and you have, the leftovers from those sessions alone, you've heard those songs that are on there, those 9 songs. I've got another 24 songs, and I'm still going through working on putting mixes together, writing some new lyrics, changing stuff up. You know how it is as a musician, when you're recording, everything is an option these days.
Yeah.
It's almost too much. It used to be you go into the studio, you roll tape, you run out of tape, and the session's over. You're going to edit, you edit in a way that is very tight and orderly. Now you can change anything what you want to. You can change pitches, you can paste, you can cut, you can move stuff in, you can sample. So being and working by myself, I was able just to concentrate and say, I really want to work on the songs. I'll get to the sound of those, but we need the basis of it first.
So you had the organic process of built the song, and then you laid it down as a song. I think one of the things that's maybe going to get lost further and further as we get, as the generations go on. And I'm not poo-pooing the evolution of the process, because there's always some good that comes out of it. But one of the things that I think I cherish more and more are the players who can grab a guitar, walk up to a microphone, and play you a whole song. And there are brilliant songwriters out there who play little riffs and can paste them together and build you a song. And that's also great. But there's something really special about a live performance, and a guy who comes from the environment where you play a song and you build a song right in real time, right on your guitar and with your voice. So
yeah, I've actually been doing a lot of that lately. It's like once things opened up again and everybody was booking in places and venues were putting music out there again, most of the bookings I've done a few band gigs this summer, but most of them I've been doing have been solo. And there's a certain magic to working with that way. The instruments I'll play solo or 6-string guitar, 12-string guitar, some harp, and the voice. And you've got to work with those three things, or those two things, or sometimes that one thing. You're playing an instrumental. And people really appreciate that organic feel of something that's happening 100% real in front of them. It's a real magic thing. I've felt it over and over again this summer as people are getting out, they're happy to be out, and they hear something that's just such as a basic thing as a singer with a guitar.
it's electrifying.
There's a million of us out there. I'm not the only one, and everybody knows it. But when you're good at what you do and you have a lot of practice, it really shows, because that audience just kind of grabs a hold of you and they're saying, "We're here for the night. Yeah. What are you going to play next?"
Yeah. Well, okay. So for everybody out there who's watching, if you are intrigued, I have to do this every few minutes to let everybody know. This is Gregory Sutton, and you can find his music on your streaming services, but it's Gregory, not Greg Sutton. There are Greg Suttons out there.
Yes,
we don't know those guys. So look up Gregory. You started to say that your professional life led you into publishing business, and we have some common ground there. In fact, not just Wes, who kind of is part of that common ground anyway. But, so tell us about what you did in the publishing business and how that sort of fed into it.
Well, I went to work for Mix Magazine in 1999. Common friend, Jeff Turner, hired me. He needed a advertising salesperson out of Chicago, and I was already working for another publishing company in kind of a technical entertainment field kind of thing. But then when Jeff found out that I was a musician and recording and everything, he said, "You're absolutely perfect for this job. We can start." So going to work for Mix back then. There was back in those days, there were a whole lot of magazines, and everybody knows the magazine industry has kind of tanked. It's a different media these days with the internet, with e-newsletters, with social media. There's a billion ways to advertise, especially in the technical industries and the musician industries. There was really a few ways to advertise that really got attention. Guitar Player Magazine, Guitar World Magazine, Mix in the professional sound people, both live sound, people engineering large shows and tours, and television and recording artists and releases in churches. So I worked for them, and that got me in touch with a lot of people. I mean, you guys spend a lot of time in the NAMM show. I've seen your shows from there, and Wes and I have talked about it a little bit. But there's a whole lot of people here. So much of the music media, in it's so many forms, from the technical side of it to those people who work behind the scenes who are just genius. I'm just thinking of the people that that have come and gone. But the Ed Cherney's, God bless him, he's moved on into the afterlife, and those kind of people. They're great people, and so many of them I got to meet and hang out with. I mean, I can't count you on more than one hand the times I sat down at Mix at the technical award shows and had Heineken and talked with Les Paul.
Yeah.
And then we go, "What am I doing here?"
Okay, slow down. We're going to get to that because, Les Paul was the innovator. I worked at Mix from 94 I worked at Mixed Bookshelf for Fred Wingate, and then 94 to 97, and then moved over, and Jeff Turner hired me for the recording industry sourcebook, and we had a great time. Where is Jeff Turner?
Jeff Turner is doing some marketing and magazines out of still the same place. It's still lives over in the East Bay. I mean, in North Bay.
Oh,
I believe he was doing some stuff for Blacktown International, but I don't think anymore. And right now, they had a new endeavor called Resolution that they were working with, which is these are all kind of magazines that engineer designing a studio, or the top mixers and the top mastering engineers read those kind of things. So
yeah.
he's still much involved in the industry.
Terrific. I haven't seen him in many years, but always enjoyed working there. When I worked at Mix, we were in the Art Deco building.
The old
Emeryville.
original Jelly Belly factory.
The original Jelly Belly. That's right.
Now I spent a lot of time there, but I worked out in Chicago. But it got to be kind of my second home because I would really need to come out here about pretty much every month and just spend time with all the people. We were talking about all the people just in the proximity of your location right here.
Yeah.
Mesa Boogie's a few miles away. Dunlop is right down the street.
Right? Yeah, right.
All these places are there's such a San Francisco has always been famous for the acts and the bands and the songwriters and all. But following that, there's a lot of people of us behind the scenes who have been here for a long time, doing the work on the technical side.
Yeah. So I also have to shout out where we are because we're at the Escape.
Beautiful place.
Yeah, this is our fun. This is our happy place. This is when we got together as a band. We were oddly enough, we met Andy Brunt at the NAMM show. Actually, Pete met him down there. I didn't meet him down there. And one day, Pete he lives in Orange County, but he comes up here frequently because he grew up here. And so we were hanging out, and he said, "Hey, we got to go by and see some folks on our way to dinner." And we came up here, and just by crazy coincidence, I hadn't played in quite a while, but I was really into it again. And I came in to this place, actually the studio next door at the time, but I came in here, and there was a bass player and a guitar player and a singer and a drum set with no drummer.
Mm-hmm.
When does that happen? And I thought, there's no drummer at that drum set. So they played a couple songs, and then they stopped and said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I think you guys need a drummer." And they were like, "Yeah, we really do." And I said, "Well," and I got up on the kit, and we played a couple songs, and then we went, "That's great. What are you doing on Tuesday?" And I said, "I'm coming here." And we decided when the pandemic hit, that was just prior to the pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, we sort of took inventory of what we were up to, and we all realized that we were all being good, and that we could remain being good together and play. So this was almost like a quarantine spot where we could come, and we sort of safely stayed away from the rest of the world, and it was a godsend because we all had the woodshed to come to, and so we had a situation that thankfully was similar to yours, in that we were kind of shut in, and we needed to. We had time and focus for the creative process, and so there were a lot of people that had a terrible time during the pandemic, and I'd say, since you escaped the pandemic with product, and we escaped the pandemic really with product also. We didn't record like you recorded, but we put an act together that now is playing all over the place.
It's just what I had said a few minutes ago. You as a musician, you're presented with opportunities, and if you've been doing your homework, you're ready for them. You were ready for the drum set. You were ready. I mean, as far as what I was doing, the pandemic was, it's a horrible thing to deal with, but I was ready to put a lot of stuff down.
Yeah.
To sit there and concentrate and say, okay, there's no live shows. You're not going to be doing that. You're going to be sticking here. You got other things to do, but you've got a good 24 hours in every day, and let's put some of this stuff to work. Yeah. And you don't know how long this is going to be. That's right. And every day it just seemed to be a little longer, and the outlook was a little bleaker. And that's why I dug in. And as you know, from the record from Twist Top Cabaret, there are a few dark songs on there. You know, there's a couple of very dark songs. Wes mixed one of those, of One Wild Ride, and that was just written basically from, you know, staying up on the news and seeing what was happening and going, oh, you know, I don't understand this. I don't understand what's going on in the world, and how do I get this down onto a song and words. And the words actually just came out very simply after a while. But when you're presented with that kind of focus, something's bound to happen. Whether it's good or bad, it's up for everybody else to decide, not me. I know I was happy with it.
Well, would you like to play a song?
Sure.
All right.
Absolutely.
I'm going to step away, let you play, and we'll be right back.
This is a song I wrote called. Sorry, I'll just start singing it. It's called Love Over Hate. We're crossing a river, taking our time, searching for answers. Hope we can find love over hate, truth over lies, love over hate, what keeps us alive? The longest of journeys starts with one step. Divided we stand, we don't forget. Love over hate, truth over lies. Love over hate, what keeps us alive? We're crossing a river, taking our time, searching for answers we hope we can find. Love over hate, truth over lies. Love over hate, what we do to survive.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
So, if you're listening and you like it, it's Gregory Sutton.
Yeah, the website is gregorysuttonmusic.com, and you'll find links to everything else there. If you get to that one place, you'll find the rest of my life.
All right. So now in the recording process, though, you have music that has a live band. Who played with you?
On that record, mostly me.
All right.
Almost all of it. Most of the keyboards are me. The simpler keyboards are me. But on Last Band Standing, that's Michael Holscher from the Margot Price Band.
Okay.
who I met a few years ago in Nashville when I was recording the Bordertown Conspiracy record. And one of our first people you might have known at Nixon, Kevin Becca, he ran the school there at Blackbird for quite a while, and he passed away a couple of years ago, unfortunately. But he had introduced me to Micah, and Micah had heard some of my demos and said, "Yeah, I'd love to play on them." So we got to play in the Blackbird Studio A, where we track drums, and then there's a little off room that all the keyboards, and there's just a collection of Wurlitzer, B3s, the Rhodes, and the thing is, the history of every one of those instruments goes way, way back.
Yeah, deep.
So something I'm sure you understand about this: the recording studios have a certain voodoo to them. When you go in there at the right time, and you can feel all the energy. And the things that are created there, and the people who come and gone before. I mean, one of my experiences that really hooked me in the publishing business was at a party in Nashville at RCA Studio B.
Oh.
And it happened to be, it was late, and we were closing down the room, and I was just sitting in the studio, the same where Elvis recorded, and Glenn Campbell, so many people recorded. And, keep going and going. It was just, I'm there, and the clock is striking midnight. I'm in the room alone with a 1960s Telecaster sitting in there playing in this room, and it's like, this is a magic kind of place.
Yeah.
And you find that with places. I mean, there's a lot of places that have that kind of energy and vibe about them, but I found it in my career in the music business and the music magazine business that I got into a lot of those places where normally people wouldn't be. I mean, not commonly as public. So, that kind of drives my continuation to, write a better song.
Fantastic. It is a fun business to be in, and not everybody who, gets a guitar and starts writing songs realizes that there are different doors into the industry that get you into these places, and that you find yourself in these sort of hallowed halls for a variety of reasons. But then there you are.
Yes, exactly.
You mentioned Les Paul. You got to sit with Les Paul at
Yeah.
the Tech Awards?
One of my duties and everybody else's every year was working with the Tech Awards, which are now run by NAM. Back in the day, there was the Biggs Foundation still exists, but the structure's a little different on how it works. Karen out of Walnut Creek was involved, is still involved in it. So a lot of the same people are doing what they did then. But we had to get people to advertise, so they could also buy space in the programs and those kind of things. But and then when the show would come on, when we do that, everybody was all hands on deck. All of us had something to do.
Yeah.
A lot of times, several of us are on this green room duty, trying to make sure everybody was ready for their cues to go on and all. Yeah. And then some of the before parties and things like that. The main org that Gibson would build a custom Les Paul for that artist. Les Paul would be there every year, and he was such a nice man and smart. I mean, just he could talk about anything, and he was always personable to people, and he never had a bad word for anybody. Never that I saw, anyway. I mean, I don't think anybody could say that.
Yeah.
And he just had his place in history.
It's not a stretch to say that he's perhaps the most important innovator in music technology. I mean, because there are a lot of things that we take for granted now, technology-wise. And like you said, you can cut and paste and do anything you want, and it's limitless. But it all would never have gotten there had it not been for Les Paul lurching forward, especially with multi-track recording.
Oh, absolutely.
It's the Tech Awards for the uninitiated are the awards that every year acknowledge these pieces of equipment that allow musicians to express themselves in ways that continue to grow and evolve. And the stuff that we celebrate really is a celebration of the people who, keep the technology moving forward. So every year they give an innovator something akin to a Hall of Fame award, and it's the Les Paul award. And we've witnessed several of those, so we acknowledge him in the industry as that by giving somebody the Les Paul award. We also have been very fortunate to have the musical director for, I don't know if it's all of the Tech Awards, but I think pretty much all of them. The musical director has been Larry Batiste.
Larry Batiste, yeah.
Yeah.
Larry.
And so he's been on shows.
Larry's a great guy, yeah.
He is. He's a gem.
Yeah, he does so much.
He and Clay Tobin both.
Yeah.
You don't have Larry.
His duties are wide. I mean, he's played the Grammy shows, what they call the platinum part of the show now with all the awards. I mean, the Grammys are another thing that I've gotten to go to quite a few times and been a part of seeing what goes on backstage and all. Talk about a technical genius. How many of them are there working that show, and the preparation that goes into it is amazing.
Yeah, and the execution.
Yeah, and all that stuff. You can take all that back to Les himself, because when you think about it, all of the software, the hardware, everything that's been developed over all these years since he stacked up a lot of tubes and potentiometers and came out with some bizarre stuff that nobody really understood at the time. Yeah. All that's the same. It just has more icing. I mean, a track is still a track. A multi-track is still a track. I mean, where they used to say, oh my gosh, we're going to have 2, we're going to have 4, we're going to have 8, 16, and it got bigger and bigger, but now it's infinite. It's still the same thing. The concept still is to capture a performance of an instrument or a person or all of them together at the same time in a way that's clean, usable, and you're going to be able to work with to get a final record product. And Les kind of set the standard on all of those things, doing something that people had no idea, first of all, how he did it, and second of all, that was just wonderful to hear.
Yeah, and to have the vision to say, you know what is next is, I'm going to want this to be something I can capture, and then I'm going to want to go back and capture something else and put them together.
Yeah.
And so those concepts now that are just so, I mean, we really do take them for granted. But for him to be able to kind of lay the groundwork made for all of these great records that we have, you know, that have become just part of the culture and zeitgeist, and could not have been done had he not said, here's what we need to capture from people who are going to deliver these emotions for us. So with your unique blend of, you know, the experiences that you got from being in the musical in the music publishing business, all of the places you got to go, all the people you got to see. Simultaneous to that, you were playing guitar, you were developing as an artist, you were developing as a player, you continued to explore that way.
Mm-hmm.
As you get these opportunities to be in these places and see the Grammys from behind the curtain, how does that influence your creative process?
Well, it kind of broadens it out to that your experiences. There's more to think about what all these people do and how they go about their work. You know, I mean, I've been at several Grammy rehearsals. I mean, this is tighter period. I had some experience, like I said, when I was a kid with NSA, with my dad being there and going there. The security at the Grammys and rehearsals is tighter than any place in the world. I swear. Is they'll take your cell phone comes out, you will never see that phone again. Yeah. Nor will you see the inside of the Grammys again. Okay? So everybody's good. Yeah. There's a few people that try to break the rules, but they learn that fast. But watching the artists, all these different artists. I mean, you have people who are just guitarists and singers. And you have people who have the full R&B production and everything, and dancers and singers and all. And they're all at the top of their game. When that show goes on and you see it live, what you see on TV is, is a kind of a condensed version of it. I mean, everything else that goes on there is amazing to watch. Even more amazing is to watch the set changes themselves. That these guys have sometimes 90 seconds to move a lot of stuff and put it out. Yeah. Even when there's a major set change, they probably have 4 or 5 minutes, and the whole thing just flows and flows and flows. Yeah. And just an amazing amount of people who know their job and are very, very dedicated to it.
Yeah. And then you go back to guys like Larry, who are musical directors in that kind of environment. So you've got a 90-second set change where some, gargantuan production is happening. Things are getting scraped from the stage and other setups coming in. And your job is to play through it so that everybody is distracted from all of that stuff, and they're able to focus and enjoy something. And the collection of all of the people who grab the spotlight at a different time, you know, that whole orchestration has always fascinated me.
Yeah, to go farther with your question about how this affects you, every time I was somewhere that was notable to me in a way, I really took a lot of notes about it. I've seen Bob Clearmountain mix drums. I sat behind him and watched him mix drums in the studio. I got to watch him mix, remix some 5.1 mixes back when that was going on. Now it's a lot of Atmos work going on. That don't even start because I don't even understand after that. Redid some of the Roxy Music albums, you know, from tape and from, you know, having to recreate some of those things and watch what he does to do what he does. Those kind of people. And I got behind a lot of those people. I was in Texas Stadium at the first Crossroads.
Well, slow down a minute, because I love Bob Clearmountain. And he's been able to kind of sequester himself and create an environment where he just works at his place.
He does, exactly right. And that's where he works, and that's where he's most comfortable. And I've met him a few times, and I was just there.
He's like the monkey's cave, you know?
Yeah, he actually, I mean, the couple times I've been in that studio, that's what he is. He's well set up.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, when they were remixing the Roxy Music into, when they were mixing Avalon in 5.1, grinding the synthesizers and the keyboards were not printed to tape with effects. And of course, as you know, in a Roxy Music, so they had to
So they had to recreate.
They had to recreate it from the original signal where you have something very dry and something very, you know, just a lot in tune and pitch, but there may be phasing on it, there may be tremolo, there may be all kinds of things going on. And he wheeled out a rack from a closet that had every MXR back into all that time that the Roxy Music would originally record that, and found all of them just by ear right away. Started patching things in, and like nowadays, you know, we have Pro Tools or Logic or anything, you're kind of clicking on a thing. Okay, there's that compressor, there's that limiter.
He was physically
running to it because he didn't want a sound like that. He wanted it to, you know, to come from the original. Exactly.
Yeah.
And once he did that mix, he A/B'd it with a clean original turntable copy of the record, and against what he mixed, and he just nailed it exactly. It's exactly the sounds on it. And some of these were patching in two or three different you know, rack mount units and changing settings on them, and that's a lot to try to remember off the top of your head, but he knew it. And there's a lot of people like that.
There are a lot of people who do it, very few who do it like Bob Clearmountain.
No.
We're very lucky to know some of those people and to get the benefit of their wisdom. So let's pivot and talk about Wes.
Wes is an amazing guy. I started talking to him when I started to get some of this material together as I recorded and tracked Twist Top Cabaret, and knowing I'm going to have to go outside of my knowledge range and my skill level is like, I'm not a professional mixer. I can do a good mix for you, but I'm not going to get one like he's going to get. Yeah. He's got super ears. He's got all of the gear. He's got the attitude. He's got the experience to do it. So when we were doing this, I said, I'm probably not going to mix every song by doing it this way, but let's take the ones we want to do the most. And he had chose Last Man Standing and One Wild Ride. So obviously, I don't play drums, and obviously there's drummers on there. Yeah. So what I did also during this downtime was I went through my archives. Is like one of the things that actually George Peterson told me this a long time ago. Okay. To mention him, since we were talking about George, he said, when you're doing a drum mix, just run a stereo mix out and keep it for later. You don't ever know when you're going to need it, you know? And that was kind of, wow. Okay. So I just got in the habit of, if I was in a studio and we were recording something with drums, I'd always keep it. And I had a stack of old CDs, and, you know, a lot of them were not recorded that well, but some of them were real clean and pristine, even though they were years old. So for one song, I had a drummer who didn't even know he played on this song. I still know him, a guy named Ralph Polinsky in Chicago. I repurposed the drums we had tracked for something else and made an entirely different song around it. In other cases, I took and put Apple or Logic drums on it, and then worked with my guy who I play live with, Bill Ziegler, in getting it recorded. And we're doing this all isolated at somebody else's little studio, track the drums, and then drop it back in the mix. Now, that's not really the best way to do things, but it was the only way we had at the time, just, with all the isolation. And I talked to Wes about it, and he says, I've got some ideas on how to make this all cohesive enough once you get it, and he did. I mean, he just he knew, we tracked things like drums if we were doing live, and I'm doing this over the phone, talking while they're recording and sending me little samples of it back and forth. It's like what to turn up this mic, turn up that one, put a little compression on that, and we kept it simple so that Wes could do his magic on it. And when I would send a track over to him, a session to him, and he'd send back a rough mix, it was obvious that he knew exactly what to do with the drums.
Yeah. He knows what signal he wants coming in.
Yeah.
He knows what he's going to do with it to give you the performance that you want. Yeah, that guy's a genius. I think Alfred Hitchcock said the enemy of cinema is the lack of limitation. And that sort of is
a good one.
That's what you guys were working with.
Yeah.
It created a situation where you had to be innovative with what you got. So that's a lot of fun. Okay. So now we're a little freer and we're not as restricted, and we can travel and we're playing live. And now that you're a little more emancipated from the confines of your songwriting environment that created Twist Top Cabaret. By the way, everybody, this is Gregory Sutton. Let's say it once again. We are at the Escape in Benicia, California. And if you are from Benicia and you know where the Escape is, you should be hanging out here. And if you're not, then, you should be. You meet guys like Gregory Sutton. Look him up on wherever you like to stream music. And so Twist Top Cabaret is available on Bandcamp.
Yeah, I put out the single Last Man Standing is on most of the streaming services right now, but I've held back the other things because there was a couple of things going on where I had sent songs to some publishers, and you don't want to put things out on the major things, self-release it sometimes if there's a chance somebody's going to pick it up because they really want it to be unencumbered. And so one warning to musicians out there who are doing their own stuff: don't check off boxes and things on CD Baby and those kind of places without understanding what you're doing, because when you have some of those songs, even though they still remain in your control, you've assigned a contract for distribution on it, and that's something you have to be careful about. So I'll probably release the rest of Twist Top Cabaret on all the services by the end of the year.
Okay. Since you've gone down that road, what other advice do you have for young songwriters?
Wow, just there's a million tools these days, but it all comes back to heart. Every bit of it is if you don't have the heart for it, don't do it.
Wow.
But if you do, and you think that you can handle it, just get out there and do it. And you know what? The thing is, you have to go through a period of really being bad at it for a while. It's like anything else. I mean, but you have to do it in front of people to get the experience. So
that's what makes it not like everything else.
Just power through those things and keep going. And if you've got the heart and the talent, you'll get there.
Okay. I think what you're saying, if I can condense it, is embrace the suck for a little while.
Pretty much. It's going to be that way.
Go ahead and let it happen.
And sometimes it's going to come back to you again. You never know. You never know what gig you go to. It ends up being something that's just not well organized or put together, and you just power through it because people still came, to hear music, and you want to do that.
And somebody at that gig, the one you didn't expect, somebody at that gig is going to say, this person is special. I'm going to follow this person, or either become a super fan, or you're going to meet a promoter, or you're going to meet somebody that's going to have some influence on your career or getting your stuff out there. You never know what's going to happen. So consider that the spotlight is always on, and just embrace that. Sometimes you're going to find these gem moments. Sometimes you're going to shine. And in order to get to those gem moments, you kind of have to persevere and endure
Yeah, I mean, we live in an instant society, in an instant age where
Yeah.
everything is instant gratification, and it really doesn't come that way to you in music that quickly. I mean,
That's for
you're
sure.
gonna have to work at it, and don't be afraid to experiment and try different things. I mean, I know lots of drummers that they started out with piano lessons and they didn't like it, and they moved to the drums and found, whoa, this is where I want to be. It's like find whatever the niche is that you need,
Yeah.
and that'll get you there.
That's good advice. I think we're all frustrated piano players.
I know I am.
Yeah.
I mean, like I was talking about when you asked about the band on Twist Up Cabaret, almost all of it's me,
Uh-huh.
except for the drum parts, and so in the studio I can be a great keyboard player, but if you put me out here in front of live and put the keyboard in front of me and said do a show, I'd have to say no.
Yeah. Well, to recap for everybody, there's an album out there on Bandcamp. It's called Twist Top Cabaret. There's a bunch of stuff on streaming services throughout Gregory Sutton's career that you can download and enjoy. Most recently, the song that Wes Maybe mixed and mastered called Last Man Standing. And it's a lot of fun. It's a great just rock and roll song.
Thanks. Another thing to help me as you were asking about being in the business is I got to meet people who helped. The first record I did officially was Bordertown Conspiracy. You've seen that. That's out on Spotify and all the places. Stephen Hart, Grammy Award-winning mixer, he mixed 4 of the songs on that.
Wow.
And I was acquainted to him through friends, and
Yeah.
when he heard it and said, "Yeah, I'd love to work on this for you." So, he did. He mixed "Rain Across the Desert," which is probably the most popular song that with people I play it in front of, and people always ask, "What's that? That's a great song. How did you write that?"
And he lent his talent to a special song.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like running into a fastball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So Gregory Sutton, not Greg Sutton. We don't know that guy, but we do know Gregory Sutton. And where do you play out? Where can we see you play out?
I down here, the first place that I ended up playing again was the Vista Colina Resort in Napa.
Oh,
not far from here.
Uh-huh.
They have this way cool, great lawn in the middle of the place, and they do a summer music program there. So the first place I got back to was there, and I ended up playing there about 4 times in the summer of 2021. And since then, I just did a show. We did an album release show over in Livermore at the new Almost Famous Wine Company stage.
Yeah.
If you've heard of that or not.
Yeah.
It's
That's a neat place.
Darcy Kent Winery opened up a stage. They wanted to have an original music venue in Livermore. I mean, there's the big ones, the Bankhead and those kind of things, but not one where you saw regular, songwriters like me are out, working for a living, trying to make things happen. They have done a great job with that. So I've been doing a lot of openers just by myself there. And then I came back with the band, and band I used to play lead guitar for, Lunafish, they all helped me out and did my backing band stuff. Several of those guys are on the Twist Top Cabaret record on numerous songs. So I've got a couple of winery gigs coming up, and this is all on my website. Be back up at the Sequoia Woods Country Club in Arnold, California on the 7th of October.
In Arnold.
And then there's some places. So I've ended up playing a lot up in the mountains. I'm getting back to getting some more gigs going down here as things open up. But I'm getting ready to take a little time off because I just finished up a good number of gigs over the summer that are just ending now, and record another record right
ending
here.
The summer season. And
so this is generally time of the year where I take all those ideas I've been writing down and filing away and start writing them and getting some demos going.
But what we should learn from this answer is that if you want to see Gregory Sutton and his songwriting prowess and experience it live, you kind of got to hang out in nice places.
It helps. I've played plenty. I've played lots of dives. Believe me. I mean, Key West was an experience and a half where I first started playing. And
you first started playing.
Started playing my steady.
If you're playing a gig in Key West, there's always gonna be somebody naked.
There was a lot going on in that place. Yeah, I played.
Maybe not the person you wanted to see.
I played the old Hemingway bar,
Okay.
and then a place that was called Dirty Nelly's. That I think the bartenders used to get drug busted about every other weekend. But they paid, and then it was a Wild West town kind of back in the early '80s, and it was but they never bothered a guitar player, so I was pretty safe.
Right.
Yeah. So
Like the
around
old
here,
country western, don't shoot the piano player.
the nice thing about around our area in the Bay Area is wineries they're great places for music. People that come there to see music, they are there to enjoy the music, enjoy the wine. They want to make a day out of it, and they're your best fans so fast.
You're typically treated to an environment if you go to wineries and these kinds of places that Gregory Sutton plays, to experience some live music. You're gonna have a gorgeous setting, wonderful libations, professionals who host an environment that you can't help but love, and usually sound systems that are really thoughtful, and so it just they put the whole package together.
Yeah.
And capture your performance.
I some of the places, like there's outside of Seattle, one of the wineries that's a big venue, like 3,500 seats, I believe, and that's been around for a long time. But
we got a couple of those too. The Wente,
they're
is pretty big.
Exact. There's Wente. There's those
Saratoga,
but there's a lot of music out in the smaller places.
Yeah.
A lot. I mean, just there's really hundreds of us out there doing something,
Yeah.
So and everybody's good. Everybody knows what they're doing. Everybody knows how to entertain an audience.
But not
they
everybody's
play the right
Gregory
songs.
Sutton.
Oh, no, not thank God.
Okay. Well, how about this, man? I'd love for you to play us out.
Okay.
And then one last time, we are at the Escape in Benicia, California, the happiest place on earth. That might be a trademark saying, but it's true when we talk about this place. And our guest today has been Gregory Sutton. He has, if you go to Bandcamp, you can hear Twist Top Cabaret, his latest album. And if you go practically anywhere else, you can hear the great single Last Man Standing from that record that was mixed and mastered by our friend Wes Mabey. Here you go.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot.
Enjoy it.
Pleasure. Here you go, everybody.
This is a song from Twist Top Cabaret. It's called Skull County Line. It's Skull County is not the name of the county. It's really Calaveras County, and that's a home of the gold rush, one of the places up there. And this is this gold miner's tale I wrote during the pandemic and recorded. I'm taking all my diggings, 20 ounces of pure gold, down to San Francisco, where my fortune will be sold, and make my way back to her, the girl I left behind when I headed for the mountains, gold fever on my mind. Across the line, Skull County line, across the line, the Skull County line. I'm never going back again. I consider myself lucky, much more than other men. Sold to souls to find fool's gold, wound up with nothing. Day I scraped that ancient hill, right down to its core. Those sparkling nuggets shone like diamonds washed upon the shoreline. Across the line, the Skull County line. Across the line, the Skull County line. I'm never going back again. Oh, many sinful nights I've been here since the news had come to me that she's married in Seattle to a man from Tennessee, rich from hotel rooms and liquor sales, tin pans just like me. So I've drowned myself in irony and rot gut sour mash whiskey. Across the line, Skull County line, across the line, Skull County line. I'm never going back again. Well, I sold my first real fortune for a dream I threw away. And there's only one good answer to the road that I must take. I'll take my last few dollars, my wishes and my will, and my place among the dreamers in those Calaveras hills. Across the line, the Skull County line. Across the line, the Skull County line. Across the line, the Skull County line. Well, I'm going back again.
Gregory Sutton.
Hey, thanks for watching
Thank
the
you.
show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank